Shogun Showdown is a game unlike any other that I've personally played, and to explain why I find it so compelling, first let me give you a little context. Generally, when I consider what a ninja-centric video game should be in my head, I'm immediately drawn towards choice memories of iconic series like Ninja Gaiden and Shinobi. Side-scrolling, highly reflexive action games which test your ability to make snap decisions and dig deep into your toolkit to ensure survival. Shogun Showdown is, by contrast, absolutely nothing like this. It's turn-based, you play on a static level, and you can even see what enemies are gonna do before they do it. But that bounty of information, in an ever so slightly more methodical package, allows the game to tap into a far more cunning and considerate side of the ninjutsu experience that provides an equally, if not more thrilling take on the feudal fantasy than its lightning-fast peers. Preemption, premeditation, and execution are the names of the game here. You share a 2D board made up of individual tiles with your enemies, and while you might assume that turn-based refers to a process where you attack, then your enemies, and so on and so forth, in Shogun Showdown, a turn is defined as almost anything you do. Walking forwards, turning around, equipping a weapon so it's ready to use. There can be hundreds exchanged in a single stage, and for each one you take, every enemy on the board will, turn by turn, gradually carry out their own attack strategy in tandem. It can be a little confusing to get used to, but with enough time it becomes rhythmic. Enemy behaviour is very consistent, so you always know what's coming, and from there it's up to your carefully selected repertoire of countermeasures like positioning and weaponry to deftly overcome each challenge and emerge from the battle victorious. Speaking of weapons, there's a huge variety to choose from. Some deal direct damage, while others focus on moving you around or pushing enemies away, but they all have a distinct place in your potential toolkit, and their usage is kept intriguing between runs by revolving around a simplified deck building system, where you gradually add weapons to your arsenal throughout the game, and spend your limited money or combat rewards on bestowing them with upgrades of varying intensity, many of which also come with unwieldy detriments. As a quick example, it may seem enticing to enchant a weapon with ice magic, stopping those struck with it from taking turns for a short while, but it significantly increases the weapon's cooldown to the point where there's no way your opponent won't be unfrozen by the time it's ready to use again. So you've got to take your full set of tools into account before you make those big decisions to ensure that you'll get some real value from your investment. Your other source of power scaling comes in the form of skills, pretty similar to relics from Slay the Spire. And they most often give you conditional bonuses like extra damage if the enemy is far enough away, or extra money if you kill more than one enemy in a single turn. These can only be bought in the shops between levels, but since their effects are all pretty universal, they do make a compelling case for purchase as opposed to just dumping all of your money into weapon upgrades. I'm personally a pretty big fan of the Green Dancer skills, which serve to augment your chosen character's signature move, all of which revolve around repositioning either you or your enemies around the board to make managing the situation and lining up an efficient execution just that bit easier. Since we just mentioned characters, I'll affirm it here, they're all exactly the same aside from their starting loadout and signature ability, except the Shadow, who's a little more unique. The Wanderer, who you start with, has a simple melee and ranged option, along with the ability to walk into an enemy to swap places with them, which is great for getting out of a tight spot. While a more advanced character, and my personal favourite, the Jujitsuka, can throw enemies that she has her back to the other side of the board, and deal mass damage with her Scar Strike starting weapon to take advantage of the collateral hits said throws can result in, which is a much more fun playstyle once you have a handle on enemy behaviours. If you're smart about it, you can even throw an enemy who's just about to attack directly into another, circumventing the damage that you would have taken while forcing a good chunk of friendly fire in the process. There's a lot of depth to enjoy in this game when you realise just how versatile taking advantage of an enemy's position is. Whether it's using them as a human shield to block line of sight from a more prominent threat, or tricking them into cleaving through their allies for most of a round. Each one is a weapon in of itself that helps maintain the flow of combat and offset the cooldowns of your personal tools, while you continue to optimize the value of the time you're carefully biding. Structurally, run length in this game is about average for the genre. I think I spend about 45 minutes getting to the final stage most of the time, and honestly, they rarely drag. Each one is comprised of a really simple cycle, which serves to keep you engaged and ready you for the decisions you'll need to make well in advance, giving you ample headway for planning and scheming as you devise your unique run-by-run approach to scaling up your build. First, you choose where you want to go. The few branching paths there are in the game will lead to different challenges, but more importantly, different shops that you might want to visit. Next is to actually beat a stage. They're usually comprised of like 3 rounds, which are themselves made up of 10 or so waves, and between each round you'll get a chance to upgrade your weapons, so progression feels steady. After that, you might come across a boss, signified by a demonic red skull at the top of the screen. They always show up in the same places, so you know what you'll be up against, but each one is, at least initially, a puzzle that you'll have to decipher, and ideally prepare for in advance if you know your build isn't yet ready to face them. Once they're overcome, it's time to hit the shop and start the cycle again until you reach the Shogun's castle. I'm being a little reductive here because this is a much quicker video than I'm used to making, but I think this is actually a perfect segue into mentioning exactly why this game doesn't get stale super quickly. Beyond, you know, enemy variety and unlocks and difficulty scaling, which we'll be getting into soon. The art in this game is amazing. Visually and auditorily, it's a real treat. The pixel art for the characters is pretty chunky, don't get me wrong, but everything that surrounds it, from the subtly animated backgrounds to the artistically cohesive UI and UX, which make it much easier to get immersed, seriously impress me. And that's to say nothing of the soundtrack, which meshes iconic feudal-era Japanese strings and chimes with modern drum machine sounds and bass beats to create something that feels like both a high-energy arcade experience and a fitting, respectful rendition of classic sounds updated for the future. To finish up, I think it's fair to let you know what to expect from this game from a progression standpoint. I've laid out the features, sure, but if they don't hold up for long, it doesn't mean all that much. Similarly, again, to Slay the Spire and others of its ilk, Shogun Showdown allows you to linearly increase the game difficulty up to 6 times by beating the previous one in order to unlock the next. With 5 characters and 7 scales for each, that's 35 runs that you'll have to win if you want to see it all through, between strategy-bending game modifiers and new boss variants. And that is, of course, disregarding the inevitability of things like deaths and challenge hunting, which will no doubt add at least 100 or 2 runs onto that number to really stretch the playtime. Aside from higher difficulties, you can also unlock more weapons and skills with the currency you get for defeating bosses. Though I do feel like this contributes to a bit of an item bloat problem, especially when you've been playing for a long time, and some of the things you'll unlock are quite niche. Though it doesn't bother me too much personally, since building around hyper-specific niche tools to catch an enemy off guard is a pretty ninja-like thing to do anyway. So, all in all, this game is great. The combat is decidedly unique, somehow making turn-based fast-paced. Successfully executing a plan which sees you weave around the board to defeat a string of enemies in a single movement is always satisfying, and the systems which surround the combat, while pretty simple compared to its contemporaries, are more than sufficient to facilitate the amount of depth necessary for this kind of experience. Between all that and the stellar artistic design, I'm really looking forward to what developer Roboatino has up their sleeve next, and I'd really encourage you to give this game a shot if you're interested. There's even a free demo on Steam if you're still not sure it's for you, and honestly, even if you are, what's the harm in a free taster anyway? If you do try it, be sure to let me know what you think, but aside from that, this has been Rain Reaver. Never stop being yourself, and have an amazing day.